This is Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, brought to you by the Iowa Soybean Association, your source for the latest Iowa ag news headlines right here in the heart of the heartland. With reports from our award-winning team of Dustin Hoffman, Riley Smith, Mark Magnuson, and Andy Peterson. Now, from the IARN studios in Des Moines, here's Mark.
Hello and welcome into Ag Matters PM on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Mark Magnuson. Today is Wednesday, March 5th, 2025, and we're so glad you can join us for today's show. In today's episode, I will be joined by Robin Schmahl of agmarket.net for our closing markets. But first, it is the latest edition of Between the Pods. I am joined today by Morey Hill to discuss the World Initiative for Soy in Human Health.
It's time to go between the pods with the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network and the Iowa Soybean Association. For the next year, we will explore the ways Iowa-grown soybeans are making a difference at home and around the world. Now, here's your host of Between the Pods, Mark Magnuson.
Mark Magnuson for the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, and I'm joined today by Morey Hill. We are at the Iowa Soybean Association Farm Forward event, which is in downtown Des Moines at Hotel Fort Des Moines. And Morey, of course, is a former ISA board member, and he is now part of the World Institute for Soy in Human Health. And could you tell us, please, Morey, before we get into WISH, your background with ISA and your background as a farmer, please?
Sure, Mark. I started with ISA in 2014 when I first got elected to the board of directors. And we have term limits on the Iowa Soybean Board, so I turned off of there a couple years ago. But I am also a national director on the American Soybean Association, and with that role, I was able to become a member of the WISH committee, which you just mentioned, the Soy Initiative for Human Health, and this year I am chair of that committee.
So, Morey, for those who don't know, what is WISH? What is the purpose of the organization, please?
It's the forefathers that came before me with the American Soybean Association almost 25 years ago. WISH will be 25 years old this year. They had the foresight to say, as we got better and better at growing soybeans and we have that protein available for around the world, how can we utilize that to help other countries and people eat and utilize protein better in their diets and in their way of life?
So at the end of the day, it's all about getting people those calories they need, and specifically even those protein calories that can really benefit their diet.
Exactly, because, us Americans, we're used to our red meat protein, but, emerging and developing countries, they don't have that luxury. And so the people that formed WISH 25 years ago had the foresight to see that, soy protein could fill that niche as their economies improve and as their way of life improves, then get more protein in their diets in an economical way and hopefully raise their way of living.
So, Morey, did you know much about WISH before you joined the organization? And then a follow-up question, since you've been involved, what have you learned?
Oh, I'm probably just about as foreign about what WISH was doing as the people that are listening to this right now. And it's been very rewarding for me to understand just what the values and the placement of what soy protein around the world can do to help people. And I just think it's, we don't like to call WISH a humanitarian program because ultimately our goal as an American soybean producer is to sell more soybeans. But if we can do that in an educational way and in a healthy way to help other people around the world, it's just a win for everybody involved.
And I think when it comes to farm programs, a lot of times you get these programs that are a win-win for everyone. So does this fit into that category?
Oh, definitely. Because of the soybean checkoff that all soybean producers, pay into, we're able to leverage that money. WISH, because of their 25 years of longevity, has the relationships with the USDA, with Foreign Ag Service, with Food for Progress, with McGovern-Dole, any of those programs that help countries eat better. They rely on WISH and their expertise to help them fill that protein gap.
So, Morey, I think our listeners, and specifically our protein, or I should say our soybean grower listeners, are kind of doing the math, connecting the dots here. But how does WISH then help them out at the end of the day with their goals of, like you said, trying to sell more soybeans?
Well, ultimately, WISH has three pillars: trade, development, and food security. And, I think our culture is so used to nowadays, we have buzzwords. Well, food security is national security. And if we can help people eat better and be more secure where their food comes from, we have better trading partners around the world. And so what WISH does between that emerging and developing, that as economies grow, they will remember that WISH and the American soybean farmer was there to help them improve their way of life, and that hopefully they will become a market for all American soybean producers down the road.
And Morey, kind of where you started talking about where soy protein fits into a human being's diet, we've seen leaps and bounds made when it comes to food technology and how that soy protein is being incorporated. Is this making advances like almost every single day?
Oh, heck yeah. You stop and think about all the uses that soybeans are used for. And another thing, too, is initially, I think the impetus for WISH was, using actually the soy product in human diets. But we've come to realize, too, that if we can use soy protein to feed animals that people eat, we can move the needle on soybeans usage also. And as a matter of fact, I leave for Guatemala Wednesday morning for a WISH trip on global food security.
And that, again, goes to show exactly why being involved in these organizations is so important. You're going to be boots on the ground, making those human connections that, at the end of the day, we hear are so important to everything that goes into any kind of deal that's done, any kind of moving a trade agreement forward. Those human connections are just so big.
Oh, you're right, Mark, because that's one thing I've learned with being involved with the Soybean Association and American Soybean Association. People still like to do business with people. They like to put a face on who they're talking with and who they might have a relationship with. And so that's why I think it's so important that I can be that voice for my neighbors, my fellow Iowa soybean producers, or the American soybean producer.
Morey Hill with the World Institute for Soy and Human Health, now a board member there. And then, Morey, if you would like to tell our listeners, our Iowa soybean growers, anything else that you're thinking about with what you've learned about in your time with WISH, or just anything you're excited about going forward, you have the floor, sir.
Well, I would just say thanks, Mark, that appreciate the time, and that just remember that anybody that grows soybeans, that, up to 50% of ours are exported around the world. We're so darn good at growing what we do. We need the markets, and that's what WISH and what's Soybean Association is trying to do.
Morey Hill, my guest today on Between the Pods. Morey, thanks so much for the time. Always good to talk to you, and have a great rest of the Farm Forward Conference.
Thank you, Mark. You're welcome.
Thank you to Morey Hill for joining today's show as part of the latest edition of Between the Pods. Coming up, it is the closing markets. I will be joined by Robin Schmahl of agmarket.net. But first, a word from our sponsor, the Iowa Soybean Association and the Soybean Checkoff.
Iowa Soybean Association is driven to deliver for Iowa's 40,000 soybean farmers. We're proud to provide objective agronomic research, a helping hand with soil and water stewardship, and timely industry news powered by the Soybean Checkoff. Learn more at iasoybeans.com.
Joined today for closing markets here on Wednesday by Robin Schmahl of agmarket.net. And Robin, we've had a lot to talk about here in just the last couple of days. Yesterday, a down day in the markets. Today, we bounced back a little bit. What did we see in the trade here in the grains?
Well, we see the bounce back. We saw a higher close across the complex. Now, it probably was a cautious close to some degree. Markets may be overdone to the downside. That's maybe the thought by the traders. Then there was the comments by the Commerce Secretary suggesting a possible compromise on Canadian-Mexican tariffs. Wasn't specified. That may come out later today. It wasn't specified what it could be. Some of it could be more geared toward the auto industry, but there's going to be some negotiations that are going to continue. Canada and Mexico can't afford to, have these tariffs put on, but it's a changing landscape, a changing political landscape, and that's creating the volatility in the market. Now, Trudeau and Canada said they will not back down, and they're going to file some challenges, to the World Trade Organization. I mean, China said that as well. They were going to file a challenge to the World Trade Organization. USDA is preparing to protect farmers in a trade war. So there's these things rolling around in the market that have created volatility, but being oversold to the downside probably did some kind of a relief movement today. Now, commercials stepping in, doing some buying interest, buying into the market for end users. Had some of those stepping in to buy into the market. I think we're going to continue to see this as things unfold. Now, Russia, a meteorologist in Russia reported winter grains have come through the winter in good shape. But Brazil and Argentina weather remains variable, wetter in some areas, drier in some areas, and that's kind of an ongoing thing that's being absorbed into the market right now. So we're going to continue to see the volatility, but at least we saw a little bit of a relief rally today.
And then, of course, Robin, on the other side of the ag marketplace as well, the livestock complex. What do we see with the trade for the protein sector?
Well, cattle, feeder cattle led the charge higher, over $4 in some of the contracts. No cash trade took place yet today. The anticipation is we might see lower cash again this week. So I think the relief today was, again, based on an oversold market. Boxed beef, though, was lower today in the midday. Choice was down 70 cents. Select down $1.26. That's the thing that's going to really be a little bit of an anchor on that market, which could keep cash from rallying this week. Feedlots may need to move some of the cattle. Packers are not going to be wanting to purchase more. They've been pulling back on slaughter. On the hog side, Packers are expected to remain aggressive yet today, but we didn't get a national direct morning report. But the range in prices was from $85 to $92.50. Now, cutouts were up nicely, up $2.36. We need to see that. Fundamentally, the market probably should not have dropped like it did, but the tariff situation has put a lot of caution in that market. But they might be factored in right now. The market is oversold, and traders might be saying enough is enough. Now, one of the things that we have in the hog market is we have chart gaps. Way up from about 2 weeks ago, chart gaps generally are filled, but it's going to take a monumental effort to get to that point.
He is Robin Schmahl of agmarket.net, my guest for Closing Markets. Robin, what's the best way for our viewers to get in touch for more marketing information?
They can call me at 877-256-3253, or they can go to our website, agmarket.net. There's an 844 number. Feel free to call in. Somebody will be glad to answer your questions.
Well, Robin, thanks so much for the information and helping us to sort through everything as it's happening very quickly in the tariff situation. And we'll speak again soon. Have a great rest of your day.
All right, you too, and thank you. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you to Robin Schmahl of agmarket.net for joining today's show for Closing Markets. Let's take a look at the numbers and how the markets closed today. You can find that information anytime under the Markets tab of our website at iowaagnet.com. May corn closes up 4 1/4 at 4.55 3/4. May soybeans up 12 3/4 at 10.11 3/4. May soybean meal up 6.30 at 2.99.80. May soybean oil up 15 cents at 42.99. Chicago wheat up 11 1/2 at 5.48 1/4. Minneapolis wheat up 7 3/4 at 5.87 3/4. Kansas City hard red wheat up 8 1/2 at 5.57 even. May oats down 4 3/4 at 3.81 even. On the Merc, April live cattle up $1.90 at 196.55. March feeder cattle up $2.25 at 276.10. April lean hogs up $2.35 at 84.70. April pork cutout unchanged at 96.80. Class 3 milk closes up 15 cents at 18.27. That does it for Closing Markets today and brings us to the end of today's show. You can find all of our content on our website at iowaagnet.com. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you can follow us on social media at Facebook, X, TikTok, and LinkedIn. Don't forget as well our morning, midday, and closing market podcast, as well as our daily Iowa Ag Matters podcast, wherever you find your favorite podcast at Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, and Podbean. From the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network studios in Des Moines, I'm Mark Magnuson. For Riley Smith, Dustin Huffman, and Andy Peterson, we thank you for watching. This has been Ag Matters PM.